This episode is brought to you by America's Rehab Campus. Get on the road to recovery with the best rehab in beautiful Arizona. Dial 1-833-272-7342. That's 1-833-ARC-REHAB.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are now tuned in to the Armor.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Arcast. My name is Buddha, and I am here today. It's a beautiful, beautiful morning. I have my homegirl in here with me, and I'm very blessed that she's here in the studio. It's been a process to get her in here, and I had to be patient, which is not my strong suit, but the time is finally right, and she's here to share her testimony with us. So, ladies and gentlemen, give it up to our homegirl, Jesenia. Yeah. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. Thank you. Thank you.
It's been a process to get you in here, man. I was excited when you said you were on your way.
Yeah, it was a hassle, but hey, I'm here now, and that's all that matters, man. They let me finally come in, and time to tell my story.
That's good. But no, thank you so much for coming through. It's a beautiful way to start the beginning of the week, so thank you for blessing us and coming through today. You've been here, when did you start here?
April 10th.
April 10th, so it's almost a year.
Yeah, almost a year already. Time flies.
That's really, really cool. And just for everybody who's curious, she works for our IOP department. Shout out to everyone in the IOP, all the clients included. Hope you guys are all doing good. How's everything been going like on the floor and stuff? You knocking it out the park or what?
Oh yeah, man. I love working here. Just working with all my coworkers, the clients. It's fucking amazing. I never thought I would be working in this type of field.
Really?
It's been a blessing for sure.
That's cool, man. So this is the first time you've ever worked in this type of a field before?
Yes, it is.
Cool.
I've always been on the other side of the table, so this is a lot different, man. It's really fast paced, but it's just what I needed.
I always talk to my wife about that. Like, it's really, really hard to kind of make somebody understand how awesome it is to work in a facility like this. And I don't necessarily think like it's just this facility. I think it's just in this world in general, because it's like, I always use that analogy of like, if all police officers were reformed traviesos, right? Like if they were all reformed, it would be such a better situation whenever you had to talk to them, right? Because they would understand, they'd have that empathy and sympathy for like your situation or what you're going through, instead of just being like a dick or something. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that here. Like everybody who's here that works here, they've all been on that other side of the fence. And it's like, because of that fact, they're able to just treat people completely better. And like, the environment is like such a healing environment. And it's hard to make somebody understand that if they've never been in this type of field before.
Yeah, it really is. So I think all of my past experience has really given me the empathy and the patience actually to be able to work with these people.
Heck yeah.
I was once one of them and struggled for years to be able to get clean. And even though I reached sobriety for 6 years, it was still difficult to get back on track.
Oh man. Well, let's go back. I want to know, about the past and everything like that. Where are you from? Are you from here?
No, I'm actually raised in Las Cruces, New Mexico.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I'm from Hatch, a little small farming town, so there ain't much to do there. So the first chance that I had, I got out of there.
Man, Las Cruces. Shout out to Las Cruces. I know we have some listeners from there, and my buddy Andrew and his wife Brianna and all them are from Las Cruces, New Mexico too.
Oh, that's tight.
So that's
Small world.
Cool. And are you an only child?
No, so I actually have 3 half brothers, 3 half sisters, and one biological brother.
Ooh, did you guys all live together?
Oh, no, hell no. I couldn't put up with all of them.
Oh, I was going to say, damn, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, no, too many people, man.
How many siblings did you grow up with?
I grew up with my biological brother.
Okay.
He was my rock. He was my savior. He was the one that pretty much raised me. My mom and dad were always working, so it was a blessing having a brother like that. And I still have him in my life. I followed him everywhere he went. Yeah? Yeah, so even still to this day. So whenever he first moved out of Hatch, New Mexico, I ended up following him to Truth or Consequences.
Wow.
And from there, I followed him to Silver City. And then he moved to Tucson, and I followed him all the way over here, too. So
that's cool, though. That's a blessing to have somebody that close. He's older than you, I'm guessing?
Yeah, he's older than me. He's 6 years older.
6 years older. Wow. See, I think that's cool, too. My brother and I are 5 years apart, but it was him and I were close, but, he didn't want nothing to do with my ass when he was older. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But no, I mean, we've grown to love each other. But no, I think that's a special relationship to have. And as far as, the parent situation, did you have your biological parents with you as well?
Yeah, I always had my biological parents with me, but I mean, being raised in a small farming community, it's like there was really no work. So whatever job they could find, they just had to hustle at it,
Oh, man.
My mom worked in a restaurant, and my dad worked as doing hard labor while working in the fields, the pecan ranches. He did the most, everything he could, man. He got into it.
Wow. And they're married?
Yeah, they're married. Yeah, they've been married for I don't even know. It was a very, very long time.
That's crazy that you say the pecan fields, because I heard recently that I was always under the impression that New Mexico was known for like their green chili. But in reality, they say that the pecan fields are there's way more pecan fields than there is green chili out there.
Yeah, there is. I mean, we have the best hatch green chili there is over there. Yeah, it's fire.
Have you eaten at Poco and Mom's?
No, I have not.
I don't know if this is true. I'm just talking shit. But I heard that they are one of the only restaurants that gets fresh hatch green chilies shipped in every week from New Mexico. So they do like fresh like salsas and stuff there too. So it's pretty bomb if you've never been there before. It's all New Mexican food.
I'll have to try it out someday. Yeah, I'm used to that really good hot fiery stuff. Back home. I could never go. My mom still sends me chili to this day. Every season she sends me chili.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So, all right. Well, that's cool. Kind of paint the picture. You got your parents, you got your sibling, your brother with you. Did you go to school, like your whole academic, elementary, middle school, all that in New Mexico?
So, yeah, I went to the Hatch Middle School, elementary school. I didn't really attend the high school, though.
Okay.
So, my middle school year, I ended up pregnant at the age of 11. So, I didn't really get into school after that. So, it was a really big adjustment. It was, not gonna lie, it was pretty traumatic, finding out that you were pregnant at the age of 11,
Yeah.
It was a lot.
So let me go back and ask you a couple questions in regards to that. Was there ever addiction or anything like that in your household growing up? Like anything that you were aware of?
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, I have three half brothers and 3 half sisters, and all of them, they were really pretty deep in their addiction. There was only like one of them that wasn't two females that were not in their addiction in my family. But my dad, he was an alcoholic growing up too.
Functioning?
Yeah, functioning, abusive alcoholic.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no. So 11 years old, that situation, were you dating somebody at the time? Was it anything like that, or was it over like an abuse?
It was over an abuse type of thing. So I was really into the drinking and the partying scene. At that age, I was already smoking weed and doing coke. So
wow.
Just with the crowd, it came along, I was really careless, and I would sneak out of my house in the middle of the night with me and my friends. And as I was growing up, like I had a hard time adjusting to life with my dad and my mom always fighting. So I found any way out. So the way I found out was by just taking off in the middle of the night, going and doing my thing, getting drunk with the older kids. And one night, me and my friends snuck out, and we went to the cemetery that was right down my road, and I ended up getting molested there by a group of people. So it was the whole soccer team from Hatch.
Really?
Yeah.
At 11 years old?
Yeah.
What age did you start dabbling in substances, Jesenia?
So I started smoking weed and drinking whenever I was about 7. My dad used to think it was a good thing to give us peppermint snobs, whenever we were sick.
Yeah.
And it just advanced from there. I started stealing my dad's alcohol. He had what he called his little cantina, a whole little house, nothing but full of alcohol, and me and my brother used to dabble in it every single morning before going to school.
So was there a time in school where you were doing good academically, or were you always kind of checked out from it because of what you were experiencing at your house?
So, I mean, even though I was going through a lot and I was ditching a lot, I was really good at school.
Yeah.
So I could miss almost the entire year and still go back for like my final exams and stuff, and I would be doing great.
Man. And your brother, was he always a protector? Did he always try and take care of you the best that he could?
Yeah, he was always a protector for me, but I mean, he had his own life going on, so it was a little bit hard for him. He was doing football and doing a lot of after school activities. He found his way out by going to school, doing the most for himself, and I just went the opposite route.
Okay. And, and please, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm thinking at such a young age, sneaking out of the house, doing things like that, was there not a lot of emotional like support for you as a young age, like from your mother and father, because they were just busy kind of in their own thing?
Yeah, so growing up, my mom and my dad, they were just so into always fighting and arguing. My dad was into his drinking that they hardly ever paid any attention to me, honestly.
Man.
My brother, like I said, he was the one that raised me. So whenever he wasn't around, it was just, I was free to do whatever the hell I wanted. And usually it wasn't best.
Yeah, no, I could imagine, man. And did anybody know about the abuse prior to them finding out that you were pregnant? Had you confided in your brother or anything?
No, I actually didn't confide in anybody. So at that time, I just lied to them. And I even still lie to my dad to this day. And I tell him it was a romance. I had a 15-year-old boyfriend at the time, and I told him that's what it was from. But since he was in foster care, he just up and disappeared one day and ended up getting arrested and went to juvenile hall. So it was just a lie that I kept going for many years, you know?
I think that's just to kind of go into that a little bit, I think a lot of people struggle with that as a fear of being open and transparent about things that they've experienced, because for one, we feel like no one else has ever gone through something like that. I could only imagine 11 years old experiencing something that traumatic and fearful in your life at such a young age. It was probably very hard for you to open up and just express how you were feeling, because, for one, it's like, who's going to listen? What's going to happen, And what ended up happening as far as like you being in school and stuff when all of that happened? Did your whole world change after that situation?
Honestly, it did. My mom was really supportive all throughout my pregnancy, As I was growing up, I actually wanted to have an abortion, but my mom wouldn't let me, and at that time we had to have the parents' consent because I was so young. But I mean, I'm glad she made me keep the baby. He ended up being a beautiful, wonderful little boy,
Awesome.
But yeah, my whole world changed. It went upside down. I was a cheerleader at that time, and I was actually doing fairly well in school. That was before I started ditching and everything. So it was something else. It was a lot to deal with. But I mean, luckily I had the support of my mom, and I had the support of a couple of friends that stayed by my side throughout my entire pregnancy. And I was able to get through it one way or another. I mean, not in the best form, but I was able to get through it.
Man, once, your family, your brother and stuff found out what had happened, I know you said that you had kept up kind of that lie for a little bit. Was that something you kept up for your brother and stuff as well?
Yeah, I kept it up for my brother up until just recently, where my brother became involved in my treatment. He didn't really know about any of it.
Man.
So I think the first time he actually found out about it was at my recent court, which was just a month ago.
Nobody ever was like brought to justice for doing that thing to you?
No. I mean, I spoke about it once while I was in treatment whenever I was about 16 years old, but I never really kept going on with it. I didn't get any treatment or any counseling for it. I just kept on with my life. I thought it was going to be easier like that. Growing up, my dad, he was, like I said, he was a really abusive alcoholic, and he used to talk down on me and my mom a lot. I don't know, maybe it was an era thing, something that he went through in his past, but he tended to be really, how can I say it, verbally abusive to any females. And he would always tell us that we were never going to amount to anything, that we were nothing but, how do you say it? I'm trying to think about a good word. Putas de la calle.
Wow.
So it was hard growing up like that. He always looked at us and said that we were never going to amount to anything, me and my mom, and that's all we were ever going to be, was just whore on the street. So,
it's one of the things that we talk about a lot on this show, and for it's always very similar in different aspects of these generational curses, and how like you said, it's probably stemmed from when he was younger.
Yeah.
I bet you if you were to look back into your father's history, his parents, the way he grew up, it probably wasn't the most nurturing environment, unfortunately. Yeah. And who knows how many generations before him have, gone through that situation. And, and dude, and that's crazy to hear that you went through that at such a young age. My daughter is 11 years old, and my heart goes out to you. And I have to show you love and respect for the fact of your tenacity and the fact that you're a hustler, man. Like, you're a strong woman. I could see that in just your presence and the way that you present yourself. And I'm one of these people who truly believe like that type of character is developed in darkness. It's just like a beautiful picture. Characters developed in darkness. So I'm happy to see that you're over here changing people's lives on a daily basis, because Lord knows you could have easily fallen back from that and felt sorry for yourself and all of these things that come with it, the shame and the guilt,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's been hard, and it's still a battle to this day, but man. I mean, I'm determined. I'm determined not to be that person that everybody always thought I was going to be. I'm determined to be the best me possible, and to be able to spread my message and be able to help other people, so that way they don't have to suffer. They don't put their kids through that same suffering,
Yeah.
Hopefully touch a couple lives,
Yeah. And I mean, going back to the whole thing too about, us not being alone in our situations. My wife had just seen that movie about like the child trafficking and all of that stuff. And it's just amazing, like how often that type of shit happens to young kids. You know what I mean? And to be that type of a person and that beacon of light for people that have experienced that type of trauma, man, I'm proud that, we have you here to be able to do that. So how did your addiction come together with all of that? Because I know you said you were younger when you had already started smoking. Were you sober throughout your pregnancy?
So I actually wasn't. I didn't become sober until I was about 6 months pregnant from him.
6 months.
And that was because I had been sent to the hospital, right? Because I had a rising heart rate. I was born with a heart murmur, and with all the coke use and all the drinking, it just kind of caught up to me. I became really dehydrated with all the morning sickness, and I hid my pregnancy from my parents very well.
Wow.
And I mean, it was pretty easy because I was never home. At that age, I was staying over at friends' houses, and I was at my friends' houses every single day for like the entire school year, after school, summertime.
Once that happened and stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, like as a little girl, like who taught you about, your body and how it works? Were those all things that you were aware of before that happened?
Honestly, no. Like I said, my mom married my dad whenever she was really young, right? She was about 16. She came over here from Mexico whenever she was 11. So she never gave me any of that knowledge. Like I learned a little bit from school, from the sex ed class, but that's about it. I didn't know what any of that was. And it was just, honestly, the way I ended up becoming pregnant, like before like whenever I first started having relationships, it was just a little weird. I did it just to fit in,
Yeah.
I was hanging around with like 17-year-olds, 16-year-olds, and that's what they were doing. So I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna give it a try, And after that, it just became something that was out of hand,
And I mean, I just think about that, being a young little girl trying to navigate through this ugly world and all the toxicity that comes with it. When you had your son, was there ever moments during that time, like CPS and stuff got involved with your parents and all of the things that were going on with you because you were so young?
No, so CPS never got involved. I don't really understand how. I mean, nowadays I see them get involved in every single little aspect of somebody's life.
Yeah.
But I never had that issue. And I guess it's because I always had my mom there to care for my child. So my mom was really wise with these type of things. I don't know where she would get her advice from, but I made a power of attorney for her the minute I had my son. So that way, if anything were to happen to me, because like I said, I was going down the wrong track. I made her the power of attorney, and she's just always had a care for my son. Pretty
much forced into becoming an adult at that time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So your mom, was she the one that tried to kind of help you navigate through that a lot once everything started coming to fruition?
So whenever I had my son, it didn't get any easier after that. My dad had pretty much disowned me whenever he found out I was pregnant. He wouldn't talk to me. Whenever he did talk to me, it was just to tell me off and to run me out of the house, So I really wasn't there throughout the first couple of years of my son's life because I just couldn't put up with my dad yelling at me, being that abusive to me.
Yeah.
There was a couple times where I would just leave for like months at a time. I was a juvenile at that time, and my mom would report me as a runaway, and that's how CPS started getting involved. But they didn't get involved with my son. They got involved with me.
Okay.
They removed me from the home. They placed me into what do you call it? It's a Mesilla Valley Hospital over there in Las Cruces. So it's like kind of like a rehabilitation center for mental health, dual diagnosis people.
Yeah.
And I was there for like 4 to 5 months.
At what age?
I was about 14, 15.
14, 15.
Yeah.
Man, and like how did that situation, and my brain is just racing, and a young little girl experiencing this type of trauma. Now you have a son, you have this rocky relationship with your father, your mom is there to support you. I mean, were you even comfortable staying at home at this time if they're married together? Like I could imagine you probably didn't really want to be home very often. And
no, I honestly, whenever I because after I had my son and I went to the hospital, I ended up going to a group home, and I would just run away from every single place that they would put me in. But whenever I got placed into foster care, I actually felt at home for once.
Really?
It was so uncomfortable being at home with my parents, not because of my mom, but it was just all the ruckus with my dad. Like he was a raging abusive alcoholic, and he didn't just display his anger towards me. It was towards everybody except for my son. He fell in love with that little boy, and he just treated him like it was his world, Did
you ever wonder why your mom wanted to stay with somebody that treated her that way and treated you guys that way?
So that's a good question. So I actually just talked to my mom about this just recently. I had already came to the conclusion, like, I think she was just so young whenever she got with him, and she didn't have any knowledge of what a healthy relationship was like,
Yeah.
Just recently, since I got into this field and since I started working on myself, I started explaining to her, the things that I have learned. And she was able to open her eyes and be able to put her foot down. And I mean, at this point, I'm not going to say it's a little too late, but at least she's, getting the idea of what a healthy relationship is.
Absolutely.
And she realizes that what she has been through was not nothing near being a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
But yeah, they got together at a really young age, and she's struggled, but she says she stuck around because my dad saved her. So before she met my dad, she was in a very abusive relationship to where one time they were fighting at a bar, and that's how her and my dad met. They were fighting at a bar, and the boyfriend that she was with actually physically abused her, and she was bleeding, and my dad had went to go pick her boyfriend up, which was his friend, but instead of picking him up, he left him there and picked her up. So that's just, ever since then, she's always seen my dad as a hero.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those things too that we talk about, a lot of people, depending on where you were brought up and the influences that you had around you, it's really hard to clean a mess if you don't identify it as a mess in the first place. So I think it's awesome, not only are you breaking generational curses in your own life for being as strong as you are, but you're also educating others that may, have not seen that type of light in their life yet. You know what I'm saying? So, that started happening. Now, let's fast forward. You are in the age of, 15, 16 years old. Right? School is out of the picture at this point, right? Were you still trying to go to school, or were you done with that at that point?
So I didn't even try to go back to school. Well, that's a lie. I did. I actually went to a charter school. I had to travel because I was expelled from the high school that I was at.
Okay.
So I had to travel 30 minutes from Hatch to Las Cruces to go to this charter school. I got myself enrolled, but I never actually went. I went for about a half a day, got tired of waiting in the office, and I just booked it. Dang. I just took off walking.
Why'd you get expelled? Are you a little scrapper or what?
Yeah. So actually, I was taking finals in my art class, and I got irritated with the teacher because of the music that she was playing. And me being a hothead that I was at that point, I refused to take the final. I told her that I wasn't gonna do shit in her class. So she called the principal, and the principal went over there, and he laid hands on me. He grabbed my arm and tried pulling me to the office. Shit. Yeah. And he tried pulling me to his office, and I right away, I snatched my hand back, and there was so many doors, right? So right by my art class, there was a door that exited out towards the gas station. And I booked it out that door. I ended up getting a call from my mom, from the police department that was there, from the Hatch Police Department, that I had to go back to the school just to sign my paperwork. And I thought, I was hell no, I'm not going back. I'm going to get arrested. I had already been so used to going in and out of juvenile detention that I was really resilient on going back. But whenever I went back, they were just expelling me, making me grab all my things from my locker and being escorted by police officers off-site.
Man. So the juvenile detention, at what age did you start getting a record?
At the age of 12, I started going in.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, it all just makes sense. You know what I mean? All the things that you experienced, I'm sure. Did you have feelings of resentment and hatred and stuff towards people, men in particular, anything like that?
Yeah, I did, especially men. I mean, growing up in the family that I did, seeing my dad being that abusive towards my mom and my brother, it really got me thinking. And then he was really verbally abusive to me as well. He never laid hands on me, and that's a thing that I never understood. Before I had my son, or before I got pregnant, I was always his baby, but he would always talk shit to me,
Yeah.
So it was weird. We had a really weird dynamic going on at home. But I was really resentful towards the whole world, actually.
Man.
I wasn't kind to anybody, and I would always see it this way. I would mess with them before they mess with me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like a form of protection to protect yourself.
Yeah.
And your mom, did she have custody of your son at this time?
So I never actually handed over custody. I just made her power of attorneys every single year.
Okay.
Yeah.
But as you were, running away, I mean, it's kind of crazy to even say that you're running away. It's almost like, you're forced to becoming an adult. So it's like no childhood. 11 years old, from that point on, you're having to handle things on a whole nother level.
Yeah.
Have you always been pretty independent? Were you on your own pretty much at that point too?
Yeah, I was. And there was many times where I would leave my home and end up going, but I always had a relationship then, and it was always with older people. So at the age of 14, I ran away again, and I moved in with my 21-year-old boyfriend.
Wow.
And his family, and that's when I started getting into harder drugs and stuff. But really? Yeah, I was always a little rebel, and I was really independent. That was the one good thing that my dad taught me, is never be dependent on anybody. Always figure out your own means, and if you want something done, do it yourself.
Okay, but you always had your son with you too?
No, I never. Okay. I never took him with me. So whenever I had him, my parents wouldn't even let me take care of him. So I couldn't bottle feed him. I couldn't give him a bath. They wouldn't let me do anything. And it wasn't so much my mom, it was more my dad. Wow. Every time my son started crying, my dad would flip out and just be like, what is she doing to him? Go grab him. She's killing him. And I mean, it just made me feel horrible. It's like, how would I want to cause my son harm, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like those mother instincts, I already had them. I knew I did. I wanted to be there for my son, but I just couldn't put up with my dad talking shit.
Yeah.
You know? And my mom understood, and she knew it. And she would tell me, well, just go out and go cool off. And that's where it started. She started kind of egging me on to be out there in the world and just doing my own thing, you know?
Yeah. And I'm sure that even started building up even more of a resentment for that fact. Cause like, yeah, you know, I mean, that's just a God-given natural thing, is those mother to have that nurturing, you know, of wanting to take care of your son and not being able to. I'm sure that just added to the chaos and everything, you know, the rebelliousness, the anger, all of that. So you're on your own. You said that these relationships with older men, you just started getting into stronger drugs. Do you remember the age you were at when you started getting into even harder substances?
Yeah, so I started doing crack whenever I was 15 years old. That's 15. I started doing crack whenever I was 15. Before that, it was just nothing but Coke and alcohol, but I was a daily drinker. I was like a bottle of tequila a day type of drinker.
Damn.
Yeah.
How long did that, you know, did you continue doing that?
So, I mean, I kept drinking all the way up until I was 19. I stopped drinking whenever I was 19, but I started getting into harder and harder drugs. So at the age of 17, I started doing shrooms. At the age of 18, I started smoking meth. At the age of 19, I started doing heroin. And then whenever I turned 21, I started doing heroin IV use as well as meth. Was
there ever reservations with any of the drugs? Did you ever have a fear or like maybe I would never do this, like intravenously type of thing? Was there ever part of your life?
Yeah, so I would always tell myself growing up, like no matter what type of drug I would use, I always told myself I would never get into fentanyl and I would never do IV drugs, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know at what point it changed. I don't know when it changed, but it's just my whole perspective. I think it was just my mentality. I was so far gone at that point, like mentally and physically and emotionally actually, that I just gave up on that, you know? I had seen so many of my friends' dads pass away from using IV drugs, and it was just, I promised myself I was never going to use drugs like that, you know? I was never going to slam dope. I was never going to slam J, black, or anything like that, and I still did, you know? And I just got carried away. I got really super carried away.
At this point in your life, when you were at that lowest point, full-blown addiction, did you have anybody in your corner, anyone that was supporting you other than your brother?
So actually, my spouse, the one that I'm with right now, he has always been by my side. No matter how much bullshit I have put him through, like I cheated on him. I left him with my kids for the longest time. I was out on the streets for about 2 years straight. You know, I threw everything away. And he was still there by my side. He's an amazing man. I could not have put up with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, and how long are you guys married?
Yeah, we're married now.
How many years?
We're going on a year in September this year.
A year in September. Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's one of the things that, you know, my wife and I talk about, because we've been through some shit too, you know, and trust me, dude, it's all of that shit that you guys go through and make it stronger on the other end, you know. Yeah. But that's one of the things that we talk about, is like no one ever tells you about those things when it comes to marriage. You know, you see couples that have been together for 20, 30 years, and it's just like, wow, like that's possible, you know, especially when they're happy. You're like, yo, that's even a double. That's awesome, you know, but no one ever talks about the shit that they experience, and that marriage is hard. And, you know, it does. It takes support. You know, you have to support him. He has to support you. And it's different for everybody.
Yeah,
you know?
We've been through a lot together. We've been together since 2012, and he's always been by my side. And the way I met him is I was losing custody of my second oldest son. Oh, wow. And he took me in. He found me a place to stay. He would even give me his car so I could be able to get to work. He found me a job. Wow. He did the most for me. It's like I was literally out on the streets fighting a DCS case, and he helped me find my way, you know. Man. I still lost custody of my son. I had my rights severed to his dad. But either way, like he was still there by my side, and I appreciate him so much, because I do not know any other man that would have done that. Like we literally got clean together.
Man, it's a huge blessing. Yeah. It's a huge blessing. And I'm very happy to hear that you received that type of love from a person, because I feel like everybody deserves that, especially coming from, you know, the experiences that you had when you were younger. You know, you deserve to have somebody who cares and loves you like that. That's really cool. Yeah. You said that you had a second son. When did that come into play?
So I had him in 2012.
2012. That's when my daughter was born.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was blessed with another son at the age of 18. I was 18. So it was actually 2010. See, I'm so horrible at dates. And
That's all good.
I've been out of my son's life for so long that even still to this day, like I can't communicate with him. But I mean, he's okay where he's at. He's with my ex, and my ex is a firefighter. He works for the police department. So it's all around. I think it was a good choice, for him to go with his dad because I was so lost. I don't think I would have been able to raise him the way he has.
Oh man. And so, okay, so just to kind of fill in the gaps there for anybody who's listening, I know before, you met your husband and before you guys got together and stuff, your addiction had gotten to the point where you were out like on the streets, pretty much homeless.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, it was pretty hard. I was just jumping from one house to the other and in a city that I didn't even know. So that was whenever I first moved to Globe, Arizona, and I didn't know anybody there. It was hard, but I mean, I figured out my means by meeting people. And I didn't always have the best choice in friends, but I mean, they still helped me get through it, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, absolutely. What brought you to Globe? Just the people you were dating?
Yeah, so my second son's dad lived there.
Okay.
So I moved in with him, and I ended up bringing my son like a year after I was living with him. And I ended up trying to commit suicide.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I was going through some postpartum depression, and I wasn't taking care of it the way I should have been. I let myself go, and I ended up losing my mental stability at that point.
Man. And especially not having the support from somebody to be there to kind of help and allow you to stay on track. You know what I mean? Having to do that by yourself. When you found out you were pregnant with your second son, were you sober when you had him?
Yeah, with my second son, I was sober my entire pregnancy. I had just gotten out of foster care. I was working. I had went up to visit my brother, and that's how I ended up becoming pregnant, right?
Uh-huh.
But throughout my entire pregnancy, I was sober. I was just focused on being in my oldest son's life because I had missed out on so much,
Yeah.
He was already about 6 whenever I had my second oldest, so I was just trying to catch up for lost time. So.
Okay. I'm curious to know, before your husband came into the picture, but was there a moment in your life where, like, I don't know, I guess I'm trying to say, I feel like before every huge blessing comes into your life, you have to reach like the lowest of the low. Was that shortly after you were dealing with the postpartum stuff when you met your husband?
Yeah, it was shortly after. So after I tried committing suicide, my second oldest son's dad, he left me. He kicked me out of his house. And my lowest point at that point was I was just jumping across all of Globe, Arizona, trying to find a place to stay. And I couldn't find anywhere, I would go to the dope dealer's house, and then he would just kick everybody out because he was just so fucking panicked, so tripping on his high, he would kick everybody out. And the place where I would find myself is I would find myself sitting outside of the house that me and my ex had, sleeping on the porch, trying to break into the window just to be able to have somewhere warm to go.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it gets cold in Globe, so it was hard. I mean, and I didn't really hit rock bottom then. I was just so bad mentally that I couldn't gain control of myself,
Yeah.
I think the time when I hit rock bottom was just recently. I went into county jail weighing 90 pounds. And I mean, I'm not that tiny, so 90 pounds was a lot. And I promised myself I was never going to do heroin again because like a couple weeks before I went in to county jail, I had woken up at a park over here off of Irvington in a slide with my fucking shorts down, and I couldn't remember what the fuck had happened. Like, I couldn't remember shit from that night. Like, I had just done a shot of heroin, and I could not hit myself anywhere, like no veins anywhere, right? I was so dehydrated. I had been up for weeks, probably even months. I can't even remember. So I had to go find somebody to hit me, and they hit me in my neck. Right. And I guess I just overdid it. And I mean, I kind of knew I was overdoing it, but I was just like, fuck it at that point,
Yeah.
I was living on the streets and I just really didn't give a fuck. But yeah, I was with a group of my so-called friends, and they just left me there at the park.
Man, and that was like one of the moments where it just kind of felt like, fuck, something's got to change up here.
Yeah.
Up until that point, had you had any experience with recovery? Were you ever like, and ever in a place like this, or was it just a completely different world to you?
No, so I never knew there was recovery like this. I never knew. Like, I never knew about NA meetings. I never knew that there was MAT services. I never knew that there was a facility like the ARC. I tried my hardest to get into a facility after I found out that there was some. And the reason I even got into recovery was because I was arrested, like I said. And I was in there for about 4 months until my probation officer from drug court found me a place, and the beds were really limited at that time. They didn't believe in recovery like how they do now. So, I mean, it's a blessing now. It really is a blessing for somebody to be able to get a bed and come in and actually have a safe place to go and be able to work on themselves to get back on their feet.
So when you initially came into a treatment facility, did you get it right away? Or were you one of those, or did it take you a couple times before you finally got it?
It took me a couple times. It really did. So I was really adamant in my ways, thinking that I didn't need like an inpatient services, right? So whenever my probation officer finally got me into a place, she had gotten me into the Haven, right? Okay. And I was fighting for a bed for here at the ARC, but there was no beds available and their waiting list was too long. So she just wanted to get me out of there. So she got me in there, but I just looked for every single little excuse to leave, And then finally, like, something happened at my house. And at that point, I was doing some really shady stuff, and I owed some really big people money, They had broken into my house with guns while my children were there, and that was my perfect excuse. I was like, well, look, I got to be there for my family.
Yeah.
And they understood, and they let me out, so.
What year was this when you were at the Haven?
2018.
2018. Okay. I know when we had initially talked about bringing you on here, you were dealing with some court stuff. Was that involving that what you were just talking about with the stuff at your house?
Yes, somewhat. So that was like the beginning stages of everything that was going on. So I had, like I said, I owed some big people money, right? So sooner or later it caught up to me. They ended up finding me. I was still on probation. This was like a couple months later after that incident, So I ended up having to pay back that money, so I had to work it off because, of course, I didn't have the means. I had just gotten out of county, out of rehab. So I ended up having to work that money off, and I ended up having to transport as a mule, right, over the border from Mexico over here.
Oh, man.
And I got caught at the border, And at that time, it was during COVID, and they let me go and everything. And I was like, I didn't think nothing of it. So time had passed. It had already been 2 years, and then these charges finally popped back up,
Man.
That always tends to happen, right? Once you're doing good, everything goes south.
Absolutely. We always talk about it as like, whenever you're trying to do good and you're staying on track, I'm a big faithful person. Whether you believe in a heaven or a hell or whatever it may be, I believe that there's definitely two energies in this world, right? There's the good energy and there's the bad energy. And I feel like whenever somebody's trying to get their life together and do something good, especially if it's like the first time that they're really, really attempting to do something good for their life, that dark energy just comes in. It's like it purposefully tries to knock you off track and keep you from getting to where you need to be.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm a firm believer of that too. And I mean, I believe in my higher power, and I mean, he never gives me more than what I can handle is the way I always see it.
Amen.
And whenever everything was going on, my kids kept asking me, I had just barely gotten them back from DCS, and they kept asking me, they're like, Mom, why does this have to happen now? And I told them, I was like, look, I've really fucked up in my past, and now it's just time to pay the consequences, I was like, time to pay the piper is what I told him. I was like, sometimes we do some things that we're going to regret, and we need to remember that everything that we do has its consequences,
Yeah, for sure. Dude, I can't get over, and I mean this with the most, love and respect towards you, dude, but like hearing your testimony, and we're not even at, right here in this present day yet talking about that, but just the things that you've experienced, like I commend you, and I'm very grateful to God that, he pulled you from that fire and that you're here, because I can only imagine you're probably helping people on a whole nother level with the stuff that you've experienced. And I'm grateful because the way I see you sitting there, you have a very powerful like stance. Even when you're sitting there, like there's just a strength about you that radiates. And I think that's dope. And I also believe, you got to give props and props are due, so just hearing your testimony, everything that you've experienced, I couldn't imagine, but I'm very grateful that you're here. Like for real, if that makes any sense. I just want to make sure that I acknowledge that and say that to you, because it's not every day that you experience people that go through that type of stuff, dude. Like just straight up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. And thank you. I mean, I never really sat there and paid attention to everything that I've been through until just recently, whenever I started telling my story to the clients.
Yeah.
And they were just hearing them and knowing that they were able to relate in one way or another, or they were able to get something out of my testimony, out of what I've been lived, what I've been able to overcome. It's just been a blessing. Like now what I always tell my clients is everything that we've been through, all it does is make us stronger, right? Now we're soldiers, right? And there's nothing that can hold us back. If we've been through hell and back, then there's no limit to what we can accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, going back to what you were saying, with the recovery, when you said you were making just excuses to kind of leave, at what point, like, where were you when that light bulb finally turned on for you? Like, when you realized being on this side is actually a possibility for you?
So where I was fighting my DCS case. I was walking around still, doing the most, still using.
In the midst of the storm.
Yeah, in the midst of the storm, man. I was walking around sleepwalking, man. And I would walk from all the way from Tucson all the way down by like Nogales Highway, down that dark ass road, just sleepwalking. Like I didn't even know how the hell I would get home. And that's whenever it hit me, I'm like, I'm fucking tired of living this life. Like has to be more to life than just living in this cycle, this fucking horror show, because that's what it was. Like, it was horrible. Like, I hated my life. I would walk in the middle of traffic just because I was like, I'm fucking done. Like, I don't have the balls to do it myself, but look, I'm done. Like, could somebody just take me out of this misery? That's at the point where I was at, They were about to sever my rights to my kids, and I'd spoken to my oldest at this time, and he told me, he's like, Mom, he's like, when are you ever going to get your shit together? It's time that you get your shit together. I want you to get my brothers and sisters back, and I want you in my life. And that's when it hit me the hardest. That's whenever it made me realize, it's like, look, like, you've wasted 16 years of your son's life and you don't even know him. He doesn't even know you. He knows what they let him hear about you. And even though he's not ignorant, like, yeah, your parents are telling him that you're this wonderful person and that you're trying, but he knows the truth about you. And I would have these conversations with him, and he would be like, Mom, he's like, I don't even want to talk to you at that point,
Oh, man. But those words, hearing him say, I want you in my life, I want to be a part of your life, it must have been like a huge transition for you. Yeah,
it was, because over the years, like, even through my active use and even whenever I did get sober, like, I tried jumping into his life and inserting myself into his life, and he just never wanted it.
Really?
And I don't know what it was that he just missed his mom,
Yeah.
And he talked to me and he told me, he's like, yeah, I hear all these people saying that they have their moms in their life, and even though they're fucking up and fucking off, like, they're still in their lives. Why can't you be like that? Why can't I have you in my life, And I had some really deep conversations with my son, and I really missed those conversations, honestly, yeah.
So that was the moment that really just affected you.
Yeah.
And at that point, you went to another treatment facility after that?
So I started doing like the IOP, the evening IOP. So I started doing it through Kodak.
Okay.
And by God's grace, like, I got set up with some amazing people. My team was amazing. Like, I love them to death. Like, they were able to figure me out. And whenever they say that not everybody's recovery is the same, they're right. Sometimes you have to mix and match and find what works for you,
Yeah.
A lot of people are stern on, like, just doing the NA meetings and, working a program. I've literally had to dissect every single type of recovery that I have found and just find what works for me.
Yeah. Good for you. We talk about that. Matt, shout out to my brother Matt. He always talks about how, there comes a certain point where recovery is like a tailored suit.
Yep.
It has to fit the person specifically, and it's going to be different for everyone else, but the fundamentals and the principles are the same.
Yep.
You found that, and I mean, what did you learn? Like, what was it like as far as an anchor point to keeping you where you're at today, this strong woman that's sitting right in front of me right now? What was one of the fundamental things that you learned going through a treatment facility that helped you stay on track and anchored you?
Honestly, I have to tell myself almost every single day that recovery is possible and I deserve it. I deserve a better life. And I mean, it was just something that my case manager told me, and that's what's anchored me this entire time.
Yeah. That's awesome. That, and then your husband has been with you through this whole thing too. You said that he got clean as well. Was he also an active addiction at one point?
Yeah, he was an active addiction. At first, it was just alcohol. He was a functioning alcoholic, but after that, it just became difficult for him. He ended up using drugs just like how I did. He started using meth a lot, and he started smoking pills.
Wow.
And it just became really hard for both of us. After we lost our kids, it was difficult to have to deal with everything, I don't know. We found comfort in drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, and who got sober first?
He did.
He did.
Yeah, he did.
So on top of, the things that your therapist had told you, you had the support from your husband. You also had that, which also kind of came together and helped you. Wow, that's awesome though. And it's been since, I know you told me the time. How long has it been now?
I am 2 years, 3 months, and I believe it's 29 days right now.
That's really awesome. I got to give you a round of applause for that. My question to you is, how have the relationships in your life changed since that?
I mean, I've been able to build some outstanding relationships. Like I said, I was really closed off before. So this is the first time I've actually had positive relationships in my life. I'm able to talk to my mom without fighting with her. I actually even made amends with my dad,
Good.
I was able to make amends with my brother, my sister-in-law, and I've met some amazing people here, These are my main supports right here, my coworkers, man. Every time I need them, they're there,
Yes, ma'am.
And I love them for that. Like, there's been some hard times with me going through my case and me dealing with the loss of my son. I didn't think I was going to be able to make it in my sobriety, and they were there for me.
What would you say for anybody, that may be going through the midst of their problems right now, right? Maybe the thought of sobriety is like a huge thought in their head, and they know that they need to get sober, but they're still dealing with the shit of life. How do you encourage someone to keep moving forward, even though it doesn't change overnight?
I would just tell them, act whenever you have that thought. Just jump in there and try to find something that works for you, even if it's attending NA, talking to somebody, just take that first step to try to find the life that you deserve. Stay hopeful, man. Don't lose hope. There's so many different ways that you can get help. You just have to be willing. You have to be determined.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though life can throw us down, there's still a way out of it. We got to look at the silver lining. We got to look at the horizon, because it's going to be hard, and nobody said that recovery is easy. There's so many things that are going to pop up in our lives that we thought that we would never hear about again,
Yeah.
We never thought we would experience some of these heartaches, some of this pain, some of this grief, Just recently, I have lost my son last year in February 23rd, 2023, and it's been hard,
Your youngest son or your oldest?
My oldest son.
Oh, no.
My oldest son died in a car accident. He's what pushed me and motivated me to get sober, right? On the day of my graduation from my RSS classes, I was on my way home to pick up my youngest kids, and I got a phone call from my mom saying that he had been in a really bad car accident. I picked up my kids, my 3 youngest, and I was on the road to go receive my graduation, go to my graduation for my RSS, and I got the phone call stating that he had passed away. So I know he's looking down on me right now, and he knows that I'm still fighting and that I'm doing the next right thing for him and his siblings. But I just wish he would have been able to have seen me, That was one of the hardest things that I've had to deal with, and still to this day, But I was blessed, and he left me a beautiful little grandbaby that I love and adore, named him after him. He looks exactly just like him. But I mean, there's so much things that we go through, and we can't let life get us down.
Yeah.
Even whenever it looks like all hope has been lost, there's still a way. There's still a way to get through it. I've been able to share my story with some of the clients and just letting them know that, hey, with my court case that was going on, like, I was facing some serious time, and just with all my hard work and my determination, I was able to overcome it, and it was, I don't know, even my supervisors went with me, and he's just amazed on the outcome. Like, we were really thinking that I was going to have to do some serious time, at least 6 years or so. And I ended up getting probation, 3 years of probation, and it's fucking amazing. Like, I was facing some serious time, and just, it is possible. We just can't give up.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And I mean, wow. Your strength, dude, you are a warrior by far. And, for everybody who's listening, one of the things that I really, I want to ask this, I ask this, every now and then, but I really feel like we need to come together we need prayer warriors, man. I mean, that's what it's all about. We have to pray for, anyone that you hear out here, say a prayer for them, man. I mean, we need that type of support for one another, love one another. And, It's a crazy concept to think, right? With all of the stuff that you've experienced and to where you're at today. You know, it's incredible that we're even having this conversation. Do you feel now like anything that you've experienced in your life from back in the day to where you're at now, do you feel like any of that happened in vain, or do you feel like it was all for a reason?
It was all for a reason. You know, even the heartaches happened all for a reason. It's made me more of a stronger individual. And everything that I've learned and I've been able to overcome is just giving me the knowledge to be able to help other people that are going through something similar. You know, and that's what my hope is. That's the reason I got into this field, is because whenever I was going through treatment, I couldn't find anybody that could relate to me. You know, anybody that could relate to my story, my experiences, my thoughts. And that's why I got into this field, because I just want to be able to touch somebody's heart and be able to help them overcome everything that they're going through, you know, get their life back on track and learn how to live again.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you mind if I said a prayer on here? Would you be okay with that?
Yeah.
You know, I really just want to say a prayer for everyone, you know, who's listening. This is your thing to please kind of bow your head. I just want to say a prayer to Janessa and to everyone else out there too. You know, Lord, thank you for bringing Miss Janessa here today. We are so honored and thankful for her strength. You know, even through all the things that she's gone through, we're grateful that she's here as a vessel to be able to help those in need and to pull other people from the fire. We ask that anybody who's out there going through trials and tribulations, that you speak to them through this podcast, that you reach them and allow them to know that whatever that they're going through in their life is not the end, that there is hope on the other side. There is people who love and care for them. If it's this treatment facility or anywhere else, you know, have them make the right calls to be able to change their life, Lord Jesus. And we just ask that you watch over those out there in the streets, because it is wintertime and it is cold out there. And thank you for this conversation today. And, you know, we just ask for that in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. No, thank you very much, Miss Janessa. I really appreciate you coming through. Incredible testimony, for reals. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up to Miss Janessa. Woo, man, please, guys out there, if you know anybody who's curious about recovery, maybe, you know, somebody's trying to change their life and has never experienced sobriety or didn't even know that this was possible, share this story with them, please. You know, if you have any words of encouragement for Janessa or any of our guests that we've had on here, email me. And like I said, I promise that I will make sure that they get the words of encouragement and the words of love. But until next week, man, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Much love. God bless you. And we'll see you on the next one. Peace. What's going on, everybody? This is Buddha from the Arcast, and I just wanted to thank you for checking out this week's episode. It means a lot, and if you could share it with a friend or a loved one, somebody in need in recovery, or maybe somebody who just needs that little bit of extra positivity in their life, we'd greatly appreciate it. If you would like to join us here on the Arcast, either in the studio live or online, hit us up. The links are down in the show notes of this episode, and on there, you can find direct links to our main website here at Americas Rehab Campus and all of our social media platforms. Follow us. We keep the posts positive and motivational, focused on recovery, health, and wellness. As you know, in this modern day and age, we need as much love as possible, y'all. And as always, if you or somebody you know is in need of substance abuse treatment, please don't hesitate to give us a call. We're open 24 hours a day, and our direct phone number is 1-833-272-7342. Once again, that phone number is 1-833-272-7342. I hope you all have a beautiful rest of your day. Much love and God bless. Peace.